Ladies and gentlemen all around the world, welcome.
Welcome, welcome.
Mm.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
All
Hello.
Hallelujah.
right. Well, welcome to another episode of So What's Your Story? And I am super excited to be here today with all of these fabulous men. So, my name is LaQuita Parks, and I am the CEO and founder of PayProV Publishing. And PayProV means pain, progress, victory, because I believe without pain, there is no progress, and without progress, there can be no victory. So, I help people take their stories from a thought to a realization. And I am excited. You guys know me. You guys know my words. Super excited. I am always
Yeah,
super excited. And I'm for real, to
yeah,
be here and be able to do projects where it makes a difference. I am all about, as my friend David says, being the difference that makes a difference. David, I stole that from you, and I'm sorry. I'm not ready to give it back yet. So we
yeah.
have to share that. So I enjoy doing projects where I can be the difference that makes a difference.
Yeah.
And I have some men here who have said yes to an anthology project where they are sharing their stories. And let me tell you, this is a special project because women, if you're listening to me, if you're listening to the sound of my voice, if you're listening to this live, or if you're going to go back and listen to the recording, you guys know what I'm about to say. Men don't typically share. So to have these men say yes and to be so transparent and to share their stories, that's a blessing. And you know what? This project is sure to bless others. So listen in, connect with these men, and help them be the difference that makes a difference. Continue. They're doing some amazing work. So without further ado, I'm going to go and I'm going to ask everybody to introduce themselves. And so, guys, tell me your name, tell me where you're from, and tell me the title of your chapter, and then we'll go back and we'll come back and get some conversation going. So I'm going to start with William Washington since he's to my left.
I don't even have a name. No, my chapter. Hi, I'm William Washington. I'm out of Spanish Harlem, New York City, born and born and raised. I'm an author, poet, activist. And I was just so blessed that you gave me this opportunity because I made it my staple in poetry and spoken word on being open and telling my story because it's a story that many of the men here have tonight and many of the men have throughout the world. My chapter is based on being a young man who's searching for his father. I am that fatherless child. And I realized in my late 40s that I would never find my biological father because I
Mm.
have become my biological father. All the ills that he may have had, I have now. In terms of being father, being at home for my children. I'm going to share with you just an opening snippet, two
Okay.
paragraphs.
Well, hold
Okay.
that thought. We're gonna come
Yes.
back to you. Hold it. I know
Yes,
you're
ma'am.
excited because I'm excited to hear it because it's
No,
awesome.
no,
It's
I'm
awesome.
hungry.
And you know what, guys? I am at a disadvantage. I mean, you guys are at a disadvantage. I am at an advantage because I've read all of your stories. So I know your stories, but you guys don't know each other's stories. So hold that thought, William. We're gonna get
Yes.
right back to you. I'm gonna go to
Okay.
Felix next. Felix, tell us who you are, where you're from, and tell us the name of your chapter.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Felix Turner, and I reside in Atlanta, Georgia. Specifically, I live in Gwinnett County, which is Lawrenceville, which is on the north side of Metro Atlanta. The title of my chapter is How Past Experiences Impact Personal Growth. Very excited to be able to share my story. Appreciate LaQuita reaching out to me. We worked together in the past. I always thought a lot of her, and I'm looking forward to the show tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Felix. Listen, Felix and I worked together and I tell you, it was a whole ride. It was a whole ride. I enjoyed doing what I did for the company. But I love doing what I do now. I used to, and one of the things that I loved about Felix is Felix was always open to hear, always very, very complimentary, always very encouraging. And I love that about Felix. So thank you so much for saying yes, Felix. So my friend David, we've been around the world.
Yeah,
Tell
all
us,
right.
tell us who you are, where you're from, and tell us the title of your chapter.
My name is David Patterson. I'm from Detroit, And the title of my chapter is Life, a Trip Through Time Without a Suitcase, the continuing of gathering knowledge. At this phase is the developing of Christ-like maturity.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. I'm telling you, man, these chapter titles, listen, that's just the title. Wait till you get into the story, story. Mr. John Dewberry, tell us who you are, where you're
Yes,
from,
ma'am.
and your title of your chapter.
This is the Anthology 2, and my title is From the Pew to the Pulpit. John Gary Dewberry is my pen name. I'm a junior, named after my father. I'm from Springfield, Massachusetts, but I live proudly in Decatur, right outside of Atlanta. And that's my story.
All right, that's your story. You sticking to it. All right.
Yes, ma'am.
I love it. Looks like we lost John Edwards. Hopefully he'll join us back in a few minutes. So I want to ask, I'm going to go around and I want to ask. So we're working on our journey from boys to men part 2. And Kevin, you introduce yourself for those who don't know. I don't know who would know you, but Kevin was in our journey from boys to men part 1. Kevin, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us who you are and where you're from.
Oh, thank you so much, Doc. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, Kevin Vaughn from Kennesaw, Georgia. A lot of y'all know where that's at. Up in the north part of the city there, north of Atlanta. And I was real quickly born in North Carolina, raised in upstate New York, and now living in Kennesaw, Georgia. And the title of my portion of the anthology was Welcome to My Journey. And thank you so much, Doc, for pushing us to get there.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Felix, my daughter just moved to Lawrenceville. She moved a long way from her mama, but she I'm like, girl, that's an hour drive.
You make it seem like we're in another state.
I know, it feel like it. When in traffic, I'm like, wait, it's way up there. But
Yeah.
yeah, she's just moved up to Lawrenceville. So I want to ask you guys, and in no certain order, how important is it for you to share your story? Not necessarily in this book project, but you guys who know me, I'm all about the story. I believe that our stories have power, and I believe that 100% of everybody living and dead has a story, and somebody is waiting on the other end of your story so they can get healing from it. So how important is it to tell your story? I'm going to go with you, David. How important is it to tell your story?
I think it's, well, I'm not that big on talking about me per se, so you had to bring that up. But I think it's important to share my story because I've been through a lot of trials and tribulations, highs and lows, ups and downs, and things that are insignificant to many people at times. I find that, well, let me rephrase that. Things that I think is insignificant to me and not that heavy seems to be very significant to other people. Case in point, real briefly, a young man I had met who had lost his child. And so he basically, you don't know my story. And I said, well, you don't know my story. I lost my child and watched her life go out of her body in my arms. So I wouldn't want nobody to have that experience. But see, that's the thing. You don't know other people's story. And I use that all the time. Unless you know somebody's story, you really don't know the person. And every time people talk, they tell their story through their language, through their history, through their experiences. They're telling their story. So it's very important that we share it. And I'm getting better at it because of Dr. LaQuita.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Hey, Brandon.
How you
Thank
doing?
you for joining us. Oh, I like that fire back there.
Yeah, that's the one.
Brandon, go ahead and tell us who you are and where you're from. And look like you got some fun stuff, some interesting stuff going on back there.
My name is Brandon Dorrington, from New Orleans, Louisiana. Right now, I'm with my brother up here. This is Mr. Angelo Laurie. What's going on, family?
Hey, all right.
Yes,
All
sir.
right.
Yeah, I'm up here with the family on the land right now. And we're just happy to be here, and we appreciate the invite.
Absolutely. So tell us the name of your chapter in book 2.
Well, the name of my chapter in book 2 is called The Initiate. The Initiate, the title came from me going through a program similar to how we're set up here, with the group called Veterans Rights. It's with the School of Lost Borders, and the title, although being initiated through that process, me becoming a man, transitioning from a boy into a man, spending time with my father. The title Initiate came from after I established that connection with my father. I became initiated into manhood.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And you know what,
Yeah.
Brandon, since we're on I love your chapter, and it came, you took yours to an educational standpoint. And I love that because there are so many young men, young women too, women, period. There are so many young men who miss that.
Yeah.
And you can tell in the way that the world is going as they grow older, they miss some of those key foundational things. And I as the only woman on here, I feel comfortable in saying that women, especially when there are single women who don't know, who can't teach that, and who don't have the wherewithal to position their boys with men who can give them that. So I love that part of your story because it's a switch from the story you did in part 1, in our journey from Boys to Men part 1. So I love that. So I'm looking forward to the feedback on that. I thought that was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thomas, if you can come on video, on camera, and tell us where you're from, and tell us your chapter, and tell us your name.
Hello, everybody. It's going to be kind of hard for me to do this inside. I'm actually on the set of a reality show filming. Give me 1 second. I'm trying to move into the light a little bit. Hold on 1 second.
Okay. I can come back to you if you want, but we in the movies, y'all.
That's all right.
If you could come back to me like in a few moments, that'll be great.
I can. Not a problem. Not a
Okay,
problem.
I'm going to move into another room right quick. I
All
finally
right,
got it
not a
open
problem.
to. Okay.
Okay, great. Listen, this is live, guys. So what you see is what you get. It's live. And I love it because this is real life. It's real life. So I absolutely love that. So John Gary Dewberry, let's talk to you for a second. So
Go ahead.
how important is it for you to share your story?
Right now, it is becoming more important by the minute. By the
John. Yeah.
I mean, when
Yeah.
I first got the assignment, I really wanted to. I write, and I wanted to write something that was nice, that showed my ability to write, kind of, and just expose a little of myself. But I didn't. As we men are not going to go straight to the hot sauce. We're just not going to do it. And listening to the brothers that are talking is filling up my heart. I don't even know your story. I'm just looking at you, and my heart is filled. I wrote about the pulpit, coming out of the pew and going, into the pulpit, which is theoretical for me. I'm not in a church. I don't have my own church at this point. But I was recently ordained, and I'm looking at just following the Lord's footsteps to make that happen. So that's where I wrote. But as a man and a father and a brother and uncle and everything else that we men are, I didn't even barely scratch the surface, like I'm hearing. And for that, I'll be reading this book with just an open heart and an open mind.
Thank you so much for sharing that. We'll come back because I have a question for you. So we'll come back to you. I think we John and I are working on another project for him, a solo project. So I told him I had some questions, but I was gonna wait till we got live so I
It's
can
all right.
put him on the hot
It's all right. It's all right.
So Thomas, you ready? You ready, Thomas?
Yes, I'm ready. Okay, sorry about that.
That's
I'm
okay.
sorry. I had a hard time getting into the Zoom for some reason on my iPhone. I don't know why. It's my first time using it for Zoom. But hello, everybody. It's good. I'm glad I'm able to get in with you guys. It's a blessing. Hey,
How
can
you doing?
you repeat that question that you had for me?
Absolutely. Tell us your name, where you're from, and the title of your chapter.
Okay, my name's Thomas Ware. I am from Groveland, Florida, which is Central Florida, just outside of Orlando. And you know what? Since I don't remember what the finalized title was, I know it was. I forgot my finalized. I know it was something else at first. So, can you do it for me for the name of that chapter? Because I don't remember the final one.
That's okay. We did not finalize your chapter. We didn't finalize the title. We kind of went back and forth with one or two. So we didn't say what the final one was. So we'll hold that until everybody's ready to read it. But tell us
Okay.
a little bit about your chapter, though.
Sure. The chapter basically is talking about my childhood all the way up to adulthood, and basically, I spoke more along the lines of the things that I never was taught growing up, and so how those things actually affected me and relationships with people that I came in touch with, especially in marriage. And it wasn't until until marriage that I really had a chance to reflect on the things that I was taught while growing up that I didn't even know had already caused so much damage when it came to my approach towards relationships and just being able to have compassion, show compassion, and be able to also be able to flourish in relationships, whether that was friendships or whether that was relationships with when I was dating, before marriage. But definitely in my marriage, it took a while before I really came to a point to where I was open about doing some form of counseling and therapy, and those things helped me to begin to reflect and see why I had so many things about me that was dysfunctional when it came to relationships. But I really didn't even know that was dysfunctional until I had the opportunity to sit down and talk to somebody. Growing up, I remember that I didn't really get the opportunity to have a lot of compassion shown. I never got a chance to see a lot of compassion from my parents when it came to the way my father operated. And a lot of the stuff that I went through was very damaging. But because in the moment it was all I knew, I thought it was normal. And so I remember, and I don't know how much time I have, but I'll make it really quick. But I remembered one thing that I reflected on that I remembered was one of my sisters passed away, and I got an opportunity to speak at that funeral, and
Woo.
and I just talked about how we didn't see love, and so we really had a hard time showing each other love the correct way. And I remember my sister got up and she kind of defended my father from a standpoint of that's all they knew, but they loved us. But and she said, so we knew what love was, but what my dispute was in the middle of that was that just because you didn't know and you did it the best way you could doesn't mean it was the correct way to do it. And so it was a lot of damage caused when it came to the areas of relationship, even between siblings. And so not being able to show that compassion caused a lot of setbacks inside of my life. And so once I finally got married and went through the therapy, this process inside of my chapter really talks about that process of coming from a place that I didn't know and I was ignorant to, and coming into the knowledge of it and how it helped me to flourish. outside of my norm.
And you know what? I thank you so
Deep.
much for sharing that. I love that because it's amazing how similar your chapter and John Edwards' chapter is.
Wow.
You guys, when I read his chapter and I read your chapter, it's almost, you guys are almost talking about the same thing. And that's what I love about this project and other projects when we're talking about our journey from boys to men. And I know I'm the only woman sitting here and it's like, how you know? You don't know nothing about no journey from a boy to a man. I do not. However, I raised a boy child. Or I raised a son, and I know that his struggles. And my son was in book 1, and he wrote about when he first realized that when he first went from a boy to a man. And when he told that story, I was like, I remember that. But to know it from his standpoint, his perception, you cannot, and I'm a proponent, and there are women that will probably be screaming and yelling at me, and don't send me any hate messages because I'm not gonna read them, okay? But there are a lot of women who feel like I don't need a man. You know, we're in the where the roles are reversed and everything's discombobulated and all kinds of things. But it is important that you know that I appreciate where you are. And then you said, when I went through counseling, because you have to want to do something different. Just because it's always been done that way doesn't mean that it has to always be done that way.
That's right.
And so I appreciate that. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm going to go to William. I want you to share some pieces of your work. So I'm holding you for last right now. So I don't think I've forgotten about you because I have. But I want to go to Felix because Felix, I loved your story, and I love the what you learned and what you learned from your dad. So talk about what it was like for you growing up, and you call it the community. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so overall, and again, this is my first time writing and actually putting my story pen to paper, I guess. And it was a few years ago that I just kind of realized that everything that I had been through from just childhood really had exposed me and prepared me for where I am now and what I'm doing. So I'm a huge person about purpose and intentionality. And I know we're here for a specific reason and for a specific purpose. And just having the opportunity to be exposed to the different things throughout my life, the same thing kept coming up, seems like over and over again, starting from the very beginning, just when I was small, just being put in situations where just being a young Black boy in a school in Walker County, Alabama, where we were the only family in a 8 to 10 mile radius, Black family, in the late 70s, and me being in the school, which was first through the 12th grade, being the only Black boy in that school. And you wonder why you're put in situations like that at a young age. And my story, and not to give it all away, it tracks that way throughout my life. I'm not old, I'm mid-50s, but it's amazing to me when I start looking at it, probably my late 40s or so. You start looking back at your life. I don't know if it was because I was getting close to retirement, which I'm not planning on retiring anytime soon, but as you get older, you start looking back at your life and you're like, wow, that situation is the same.
Mm-hmm.
That situation prepared me for the next situation, which put me in a position to be able to do this, to be able to impact people. So really everything that I've been through was not about Felix. It per se, it really was about the people that were around me, people are always looking at you and paying attention to you. So you just never know why you're in the situation that you're in currently, the impact that it will have down the road, or the impact that it's having right then on your life, as well as the people around you. So very excited to be able to share some of that. And that's the reason that I think that I finally made the leap to write it, because sometimes I know as men, I have my youngest is 17 now, and it feels like he's just trying to find himself. Mm-hmm. What I want to do, who am I? He's feeling a little bit unsure about himself. And I can remember going through that too. So I want to be able to share that knowledge, and just share that you embrace the moment. Your life is about purpose, so you're there for a reason. It's about intentionality. So that's what it's about. And so I'm just really happy to be able to share that with whoever may need it.
You know what?
Intentionality is my new word.
Intentionality. I like that. You know what? I appreciate that, because when we turn around and we look and like, okay, why did this happen? And sometimes we find ourselves in situations where, and like you just said, like, I've been through this before. I've been here before. And so I believe that when we keep, I believe that God will keep pushing us into the same wall until we do something different, until we get the lesson. And I am a proponent. That wall will be there. You feel like that wall's not moving. It's not moving. It's not moving, because God is trying to get our attention. And once he gets our attention in the way that he wants our attention, then that wall will move, and we'll be able to go left or go right, and then go on to the next lesson. So I appreciate that. And when you wrote that, when I read your story, Felix, it helped me to know you more, because and I know in where we worked, and I'm not going to name the company, but where we worked, everybody in our department didn't look like us. I think at one point it was you, me, and Johnny. We were the only one. We were the only ones in the department that looked like us. And but we were movers and shakers. And at that time, I knew that I knew that there was something more for me. I had no idea it was this. I did not. And I'm blessed. And when I tell you, I am just so honored to be in this position right now, so that I'm able to help people to tell their stories. And there are so many breakthroughs. So thank you so much for sharing that, Felix. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to David. David, I know you're driving. Are you able to speak?
Yeah, I'm going to pull over now. I was hoping you get to me, because I wanted to pull over.
Okay, I know you got to jump off.
Yeah, but yeah, I'll be able to stay on to I get there. But I wanted to speak. Can you see me? I'm gonna turn these lights on.
Oh yeah, I see your glasses and see some lights behind you, but
Okay,
it's not totally dark.
Is it that better?
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Okay, my apology.
So David, I have a question for you. So we've been through this rodeo. Listen, David has said yes to everything I've asked him, everything I've asked. He has been a part of all of the veterans books. He has his own solo projects. He was a part of our journey from boys to men. And David tickled me because he called me one day and he said, "Now wait a minute, I saw some stuff on Facebook. Now, am I a part of that?" Did you tell me about that? Well, let me get my stuff in. So I tell you, and David, thank you so much. David prays for me, and I know you guys do too, but David prays for me every day, and I'm grateful. So David, my question to you is, you do a lot with mentoring. You do a lot with boys, with young men, and I love it. I love it. Why is it important to reach the young men when they're young? You guys work with the young guys, not the grown-ups. You guys work with the young guys. Why is that important to get them while they're that age?
Yeah, they say that by the time you're 5, your personality is pretty much developed. Well, you know, and then you begin to add on through your life experience. That's why I call my title "Life is a Trip to Time Without a Suitcase," because we're gathering knowledge and information that's supposed to help formulate who God intended us to be. So if I catch them early, as I heard some of the gentlemen talk about their fathers and what they did or didn't do, and in the Army when I was active, I used to say to them, because I did a lot of groups in the military, so I saw a lot of young men. It's a young man's game per se. And so I heard their stories. And once I heard their stories of what they perceived their fathers, let me tell you, most of them were saying this wasn't a race issue here. They was, I hate my father. That's devastating. They love their mothers, good, bad, or different. They love them, but they hate their fathers. And so their element of trust was very minimized, right? They don't trust men, period, or people for that matter. But I always would say to them, your father couldn't give you what he didn't have. The knowledge that he has and passed on to you is what he had to work with. You know, and unless we catch our kids early, our young men early, so we can give them the right kind of knowledge, they will conduct themselves accordingly. We're not a product of right now. We're a product of our history. And if our history has been compromised as through our journey, we're going to operate in a compromised position. So it's so important to catch them early so we can give them the right knowledge. Paul stated that when I was a child, I thought as a child, reasoned as a child, acted as a child. And when I became adult, I put off childish ways. Well, Paul was a scholar. Paul had, you know, the kind of leverage of position in life that everybody wants. But he understood that someone along the line, when that transformation came about of interruption, God had moved him to production to know who he needed to be going forward to put off childish ways. Well, if we catch children early, we can help them to bypass those childish ways that most of us as men have demonstrated through our relationships, our community, our families. And a lot of times it's compromised because we were compromised coming out the gate. So if I catch you early, then you have a high. I'm not saying you're going to totally be perfect by social standards. I look at perfection from the Hebrew text and tell us it's about maturity. And that's what my chapter is about, the spiritual maturity, because we're spiritual beings housed in a body. So if I can help develop your spirit early, then you have a higher probability of being more successful into that concept called being a man.
My God. My God. That's
Okay.
true.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Okay. Okay. I love it. I love it. Awesome. So, you know, when I first met David, I met him through Calvin Mann, and they were doing, and I tell this story all the time because it still bothers me to this very day. When during the pandemic, I first met them and Kevin Vaughn, same thing, met them when we were talking about the rate of suicide for young boys between the age of 5 and 11. And when I heard that, I was like, how is that? I could not wrap my mind around it. I could not fathom it. And I'm a pretty smart person. I could not wrap my mind around it. And then it dawned on me that when they were left in the home with their abusers, because I was like, how a 5-year-old, why does a 5-year-old have to, why commit suicide? And then to know and to see the work that they do, I was like on board, because there are a lot of young people who don't get past, who don't make it past 5, 6, 7. And it's not by the hands of somebody else. It's by their own hands. And it's heartbreaking. So as we grow, you know, it's important to allow young boys to grow and for men to be men. Go ahead, David.
I wanted to inject this because you're correct. I got a 5-year-old now. I'm a psychologist by trade, so I got a 5-year-old now talking about suicide because it's hearing voices. But what I've learned when working with young people, one of the young boys who worked with said this: his cousin who was 8 and he was 9, and he said, "I want to be like you." And he looked at his 8-year-old cousin and said, "No, you don't want to be like me because I'm a hurt person." And hurt, now this is a 9-year-old, hurt people hurt people. Our goal is to stop the hurt. Most of us walk around with unforgiveness and pain in our heart because we're never able to release the hurt. So if we can help people to put the hurt in perspective, take the emotional energy or charge out of it, people may never forget, but they can forgive. And once you forgive, God allows you to live. So.
So listen, we're talking to the co-authors for Our Journey from Boys to Men Part 2. These are some amazing stories with some amazing men who are telling their stories, who are sharing their stories. And listen, I know I've read each and every one of these stories, and I know the impact that it has on me. And I know that the impact that it will have on others. So when the book is coming, it's coming, it's coming. Make sure that you guys purchase the book and connect. I'm going to go to Brandon, and then William, I'm going to go to you. Brandon, you in your book one, Our Journey from Boys to Men, book one, and Brandon has been there too. Brandon has been in several of the anthologies. And thank you, Brandon. These are repeat customers, I tell you. Because you know what? I love it because you can't tell your whole life story in a book, right? So every time you tell your story, it's an opportunity to tell a little more of your, a little more piece, my tongue's tied, a little piece more of yourself. And so I really, really appreciate that because it gives me an opportunity to know more and more about the people that tell their stories in these projects with Pay-Per-View Publishing. So Brandon, thank you as well. So in your first book, you talked about your childhood and how you grew up and what happened from the dynamic. And it's funny because your first story connects with Thomas's story, and it also connects with John Edwards' story. So you know what? Talk about is it 6 degrees from separation? Is that right? That's right. And how the stories connect, even though everybody's story is different, everybody's story connects in some way. So I appreciate that. But in the first part, you told one piece of your story. So what do you hope for part two? What do you hope that young people, men, women, what do you hope they will gain from your story?
Well, what I hope that they can gain from my story from reading both part one and part two is to specifically look at the things that I talked about in part one was the struggle. The things that I talked about in part one was the challenges, the obstacles, the barriers that I had because my father, which really wanted to be in my life, he wasn't allowed to actually be in my life the way he wanted to because there were some people in my family that tried everything within their power to prevent that from happening.
Mm-hmm.
So I will really want people to pay attention to part one and part two. Specifically, I would want them to pay attention to part two is because after I rekindled the relationship with my father, after 30 something years, the mental, physical, and spiritual components that successful men need were present. Mm-hmm. The first in part one, the reason why I had so many challenges is because mentally, physically, and spiritually, the currents weren't flowing properly, because if it wasn't for my father, I wouldn't be in this world. Mm-hmm. So, the importance of a mother, the importance of a father, I don't know, if the balance, if the scales are actually tilted. I think both of the scales, of weight are equal. Mm-hmm. And so when the father was missing in part one, the pain I had to go through, being in the most, being in poverty, having challenges that I had to come up with solutions on my own with no guidance. And, for the most part, I made a lot of wrong decisions, but that's just how life is. Life is not, for me personally, I embrace the challenges of life, but being prepared to meet the challenges of life head on is what I want people to pay attention to in part two. You know, after 33 years or 35 years of me having a distant relationship with my father, and looking back, and then just looking back at the last 6 to 7 years or so that I've had a relationship with my father, the way that I'm able to deal with challenges on the mental scale, on the spiritual scale, on the physical scale, are a lot different. And, you know, the stories speak to those differences. And, you know, I also want people to, you know, to know that, you know, just because, you know, those differences and those challenges that I had in part one might not necessarily just disappear in part two. I'm still faced with the same challenges in life, but having my father in my life, I think helps equip me a lot more with tackling these challenges head on.
Awesome. Awesome. I love that. You know, it's somebody told me, and I know this for sure, you can't somebody said a woman can't teach a boy how to be a man. And I believe there are two. It takes two to it takes two to tango. So we all have a role. Parents have a role, mothers have a role, fathers have a role. And when that's not there, then when there is a lack, then there is a disconnect, then there are repercussions for that. I know that from my own children with my I have daughters and I have a son, and going through a divorce was hard. It was hard on the girls, but the girls had me. And my son had me too, but it was different because he missed that relationship. So, you know, he has, you know, he had to cultivate a relationship with his dad as an adult. So, like you, Brandon, he has a relationship with his dad as an adult, but he hasn't forgotten the years that were missed. So it's like having to find out, you know, well, what do I need to do to be a man when somebody isn't there to tell me? So it's kind of like having to figure it out.
Yeah, and I mean, I mean, I had men, you know, in part one, I had very awesome men in my life. Like, you know, there was you know, I got to a point in my life where I had a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and an honorable discharge from the Army, but I couldn't find a job other than being a dishwasher. Or I couldn't find a job other than being a groom or a hot walker on the racetrack. You know, working with thoroughbred horses. So, you know, the importance of having my father, even if I had still been in the same state, and having an advisor, you know, just having someone there to you know, to know what is in my DNA, you know, what type of things that when I meet certain challenges, there's different strategies certain people need to use. You know, whether it's from a prayer perspective. You know, prayers is one thing that some people have that strength, some people don't. Some people have the power of charisma. You know, some people have economic power, population, education, technology. So whatever that might be, you know, I think it varies, you know, from person to person.
Yes, sir.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much. That's powerful. You guys are listening to the men co-authors from Our Journey from Boys to Men Part 2. And I'm going to jump over here to you, William. William,
No,
you're
I'm already done, man. These guys got me damn near crying and stuff. I'm like, oh.
you know, your story your story is powerful, and you did yours differently. All of the submissions are different. They are different. And I love that because you're all different. And the people who read your story, they're going to be different as well. So I really, really love that. But William, William is a poet. And your poetry, I mean, oh my goodness, he told his story through poetry. And I love that. So just a little quick story with William. So I had an opportunity to meet William here in Atlanta when he came for a show, right? And so
great day for
you
poetry.
guys you guys know I am real mild mannered, right? I'm real mild mannered. So I it was a poetry show, and they were talented, 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 but it was too grown for me. It was grown people's poetry, and I had to tell them I love it, but I had to leave because it was grown people's poetry. I was like, wait a minute. I have never seen I mean, just spitting poetry so fluently and beautifully. So William and I laughed about that because listen, I'm straight no chaser, and I tell the truth when I tell the truth. I'm like, hey y'all, this is grown folks stuff for me. I have to let the grown people have this. I can't do it. I can't do it. But William, please tell us about why did you do yours in poetry? And can you share a little bit of the poetry with us?
Sure. I mean, I did mine in poetry because that's what I was based in. A good stew, you're always going to make it with them same ingredients, because the minute you change it, it might not taste the same. So as a childhood prodigy, my gift of gab is what got me all the accolades. All the men in my family were preachers and ministers. So I wasn't in the church. My mother didn't raise me in church, but I still had that gift of gab.
Yeah.
And so I had to find a way where I can talk to people, because I didn't have anybody talk to me. So it was always through poetry and spoken word. And what I found out was that people would always say, "Oh, Brother Washington, that was powerful, but there's a sadness in your poetry." And they didn't know that I was wearing a mask. I had to hide some things that I didn't want people to see. I didn't want people to know that I was an epileptic. I didn't want people to know of my childhood upbringing, the issues with my mother. So I had to wear a mask for too long. And it wasn't until I was a man that I realized if I didn't take that mask off, I was going to die of depression, of anger. I was just balled up inside of me. I was healing people with my words, but at the same time, I was dying inside. So I had to find that medium where I could take off the mask and show people, hey, I'm hurt too. Like the other brother said, hurt people, hurt people. And I was hurting myself because I wasn't letting it out. So that's what it was. So poetry has always been my cry. Not my speak, not my rhyme, it's my cry. It's my cry out. Yeah.
Oh wow. You know what? I've never thought about it that way.
Oh.
I never thought about it that way. And you know what? And so from a woman's standpoint, we see that all the time because we're sensitive people, we are vulnerable people, and we cry a lot. And we typically underestimate the fact that men wear masks too. Men are going through some things, men are suffering. And we neglect the fact that we buy into the whole men not supposed to cry, men are supposed to be tough, men are supposed to have all of that. Finish the statement. And before you do your poetry, William, I want to ask John Dewberry a question. And from a preacher standpoint, and I know you see this from a standpoint of men, what William just said, men wearing the mask. As a minister, do you see a lot of that with the men, or is it more expressive with the women?
Look, I was in church with a mask on until I got real. Yeah, I mean, I can't put it any other way. But I'm sitting there and I'm going along with the program and acting as I'm supposed to act, but it's not the spiritual me.
Mm.
And when I got it wasn't even nerve, it was just the real life had caught up to that point, and I began to speak really to the Lord. So it's not even that I had a mask on, it was real for me while I was there, uh, sitting in the pew. I'm here, I'm at church. Go ahead. I would even talk about the minister, you're not saying anything today. It was a good rhyme, and you put this show together nice, but I'm looking at my watch and, I know that he's about to close. I could look at the clock on the wall and be like, are we going to be out of here in about 15 minutes? And so I'm not receiving, the word. And it built up to the point where I pulled off the mask. And when I first got up and said, amen and hallelujah, it was the funniest thing, because a couple brothers looked at me funny, and it hit me a certain kind of way. With my mask off, I looked at them like, what, you got a problem? And it jumped real quick in church.
Mm.
You got a problem? Let's talk to me outside. Don't do that. Don't look at me like that. It was weird. So that mask came off, but nothing came out of it. And we talked, and it was like, I didn't know that I was in a dead church.
Mm.
I didn't realize it. So when I spoke, when it jumped on me, the mask came off. It was real for me, but I guess it looked phony to the brothers that were there, and the men that were there. It kind of maybe, we're not doing that, so don't you do that.
Oh.
So, but when you're real, as I have seen tonight, it's you're going to say what you say, and there's going to be people that gravitate to that. There's going to be people that leave you right away, and you'll mature with or without a man in your life. The Lord is going to mature you. I kept looking to ministers and people in the church, but people would always say that they had their own problems, and so it kind of even built into a new mask. When I learned to listen to the Lord and trust what he was telling me and what was inside of me, I spoke very, very directly. I spoke a truth that was a confirmed truth, and that just what I hear from each man is that there's no concern about what they have said. That is like, well, maybe I puffed this up a little bit, or I added something to it. It's so real that it kind of jumps, on you. So I'm really mesmerized by the men at this point. There's no mask on me right now.
Wow, thank you. I'm telling you, I'm sitting here, and I'm a people person, and so I like to watch expressions, and I like to watch the faces. So I'm watching the conversation that Brandon and his brother are having, and I'm watching Thomas, and I'm watching your facial expression, John, and you, Felix, and I'm watching William and Kevin. And I've always thought, I never thought the mass part for men. I never did. Now I understand that men are men and they're human beings, and I understand that. But this is a different perspective for me, because you always think, okay, women go through things, women wear masks. You know, you hear that women are fake, you know, they wear masks. And we're not talking about the mask that everybody was forced to wear during COVID. We're talking about this exterior where you want people to see something that's not really there. And so I appreciate the vulnerability to even state it, to even say, hey, I had mask on. Go ahead, Thomas.
I was just gonna say, I want all the fellas, if you could, take a moment. If you take a moment after you get off the call, there's two songs I want you to check out. Two songs that I did. One of the songs is called "Letting It Go," "Letting It Go," and the other song is called "One Man." One Man. Listen to those two songs. I promise you, it will bless you beyond. One of the things that I've committed myself to doing as an artist is pushing the envelope for men to be looked at in a different way.
Yeah.
Some of the things that we have been taught while growing up, it has damaged. It has damaged us. It really hindered us in so many ways.
Yeah.
And where we thought things made us stronger, those things were actually making us weaker.
Yeah.
Because when we're unable to operate within a family, when we're not able to operate within a community among each other as men, when we're not able to function, it doesn't make us stronger. It makes us weaker. And the coping mechanisms that we've been taught as men was to be tough, not show any form of emotion. Emotions make you weak. Have no compassion because compassion shows a weak side, a weakness in you. And
Yeah.
all of these things make us become weaker than stronger when we listen to those different forms of ideology. And so I've made it a big part of my platform to tear down the norms of what we were taught that were ignorantly taught. So it's like, for me, I think that's like one of my biggest things. Will Smith is actually, he's in the same lane. He's working with part of my team too. And he's in the same lane with the songs that he's starting to produce. It's going to be mainly focused at pointing out these type of things within the community among men. And it's like it's a new wave that's coming, and I believe it's needed badly because a lot of the killings that we see, a lot of the broken homes that we see, a lot of this stuff is only coming from places where we have been taught under the oak tree and on the corner, and it wasn't good information. It was just information that was thought to be good because someone else told somebody else. Somebody older told this younger guy, and it just from respecting them, we carried the message and we lived up to something that wasn't really good for us.
Wow.
I received that. Can I say,
yeah, go ahead.
When you were talking, Brother Ware, I say Brother Ware, my wife is aware, Ware, Ware, out of Massachusetts. Yeah, and I noticed that right off the bat when I saw your name in the book. I'm going to ask right now for the protection of Father God in the name of Jesus Christ. And what I'm saying, there's when I saw Nikki Giovanni's piece, that is a famous piece, when she said "fake with me," speaking to James Baldwin. I mean, I'm paraphrasing it, but it was "fake with me." And I just want each of you to know that there is, although no mask, but I'm going to say this to you, that I have been taught how to move in this society. I move a certain way. I talk a certain way. I'll look sheepish on the first corner, and you see me 3 corners down from that corner, and you won't even recognize me because the other part has come out to negotiate that corner. You'll see me in the presence of Caucasians, and I'll speak a certain way. I'll minimize my body language and things of that nature. And it becomes a second nature. It's something that my father taught me that is just, it's not even something that I would talk about in mixed company. That's why I asked for the protection of the Lord before I even spoke, because I don't know where this is going. And I wanted to be known first that I was speaking and that I asked for the protection of Jesus Christ. So, but I'm saying this to you men, to if there is any pretense, I want to take that away. And it's not even that it's a pretense, but if we have gotten so good that we don't even allow for that real talk between men, that I could go to any state in the United States, in any hood, be it a mansion or in the projects, and I can body talk through that whole situation. And it's a taught thing. My father was born in 1914, so it's a little bit different than a man born in 1940, or me born in 1960. I'm not going to say softer in the sense that we don't have the toughness, but my father looked me right in the face and said, "I want you, in effect, to be softer than me, to do things, to make it. I don't want you to live the same way that I am living." Yeah. So, in your perfect assessment, Brother Ware, no doubt, perfection. I do want to say that don't be fooled even by the smallest child who has learned how to get along with body language. And that blood that we have running through us is teaching us every moment. And that's how we have survived. And I just want to, I want to say that to you great brothers of mine.
Yeah, thank you, John. Thank you.
Wow, wow. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Felix, quickly, I know you were you grew up in and again your story, you grew up as the only Black person in an all white community. How did you have to learn to fight? Did you have to fight?
I didn't have to fight initially. Again, people hadn't been around Black folks, so they didn't know how to treat me. I mean, the town had a meeting. It was a small town, but the town had a meeting before our family moved in, because they were so concerned that a Black family was moving in. So the first, few weeks, months or so at school was different for me because I came from an area that was when I was like in the first grade, it was diverse. So it was little Black kids, little white kids. So I was used to it. But it really didn't have to fight. We didn't have any problems as far as people being aggressive toward us or anything. But we were called the N-word. I was called the N-word. It was used regularly in our presence until they remembered that there's some Black folks in their presence. So that was different. And to see how that changed as I grew up, may not necessarily been using the N-word, but still the, how they treat you, how you're treated, how you felt being kind of othered. That was different. But not everybody was like that though. And that was one of the things that I learned. Some people were just authentic. They were just, and they used the term colored instead of black, which
I've been colored. I've been colored.
Yeah. So that was different. That was different. So some people are, were very authentic in who they were. That's just the term that they use. That's how they grew up. But they treated me, and I don't get it twisted. I mean, I know that I was covered.
Yeah.
There you go.
I know for sure that I was covered. And that's another thing that I learned. I didn't necessarily speak about it in my chapter, but I know for a fact that I was covered because of some of the situations that I mentioned in the chapter. So.
Oh, awesome. I love it. I love it. Guys, I love this conversation. It is such an amazing conversation. And this is the book, Our Journey from Boys to Men, Part 2. And I'm just going to say the story continues. So from Part 1 to Part 2, the story continues. And it is a necessary story, necessary conversations. On Saturday, I'm doing an event at the library. So men are invited. If you're a local, if you're in Atlanta, come on out to Riverdale, Northwest Branch in Riverdale, Georgia. The conversation is the women from Our Journey from Girls to Women will be talking about their story, but it's called Necessary Conversations. And this is one of those. This is a necessary conversation because somebody said in order to be understood, you must seek to understand. So if you want to know, and again, I said it before, I'm blessed to be in this space because number one, it gives me the opportunity to be more compassionate. It gives me the opportunity to be more understanding. It gives me the opportunity to be more kind because I know your stories. I know, and everybody doesn't have a trauma story. And here's the thing, Felix, you were raised with your parents, but you were raised in a community of people who didn't look like you. That's trauma. It can be trauma. Kevin, you were raised with your parents, but you experienced some trauma within your story. Same thing with you, John, some trauma within your story. So it's, all of our stories is what connects us, and we have to continue to create the narrative because if we don't tell those stories, somebody else will tell them, and it won't be the way that it needs to be told. So your stories matter, and your stories are important. So when I say that I'm grateful, I'm truly humbled. I'm honest about that. I don't have a mask on. This is me. What you see is what you get. What I say, what you see, it is what it is. It can't be what it ain't. That's all it's gonna be. Take it or leave it. That's it. It is beautiful. It is beautiful. Well, William, before we close out, and I'm gonna come back and ask you guys how people can connect with you too. But William, share some of your poetry with us, please. And it doesn't have to be from the book. So listen, guys, you guys are listening to the co-authors to Our Journey from Boys to Men. This is just a little bit of their chapters. Now, they didn't go into all the details and all of the information they just shared. They didn't tell the whole story of their chapters, but you're going to have to buy the book, okay?
Yes.
And you can connect with any one of these men to order your copy of the book. And you would want this book. It will be available in hardcover and paper cover. But you got to, each one of these men, you can get the book. You can order the book, order the book, order the book. Okay.
That's right. That's right.
All right. William Washington, share some poetry with us. It don't have to be
Okay.
from the book. It can be any of your
Okay.
poetry.
Well, as you saw, my whole setup collapsed. So I can't share. But I do want to mention real quick that I'm the author of The Broken Book, Love Given, Love Taken, Love Lost.
Yes.
And I evolved into that. What I spend my time doing now is empowering and encouraging Black women. So that's my way of making up for all the times when I didn't love them. because I had issues with my mother. But anyway, I'm just gonna give you a little bit. LAQUITA, can I kiss you in the AM before the sunrise, before you wipe the sleep from your eyes, while the baby sleeps, before you brush your teeth? Can I kiss you before the rooster crows, on your forehead down to your toes? Kiss you so early even God won't know. Can I kiss you underneath a waterfall with uninterrupted malice? Kiss you on the roof of the Taj Mahal, the palace. Kiss you before God said, let there be light, separating the day from the night, the wrong from the right, assuring what's done in the dark will come to the light. Kiss you before Eve accepts the serpent's bliss, before the Virgin Mary was miraculously kissed. Kiss you for the 3 days that Jesus was missed. Kiss you before I forgot the poem. But anyway, it's something like that. It's something like that. Yeah.
Then you got messed up because you tried to use my name.
Good stuff, man.
That was
No.
good. That was good.
No. Wait. Kiss you so Mary wouldn't have to weep, and so that Martha wouldn't have to moan, so that what happens in Rome stays in Rome, so that the sexual abuse of Black children is not always filed in home.
There you go.
Can I kiss Loretta, Betty, Merle, and Jackie before their husbands left home for work, assassinated, never to come back home from work? Can I kiss Maya before she finds out why the cage bird sings? Kiss you before the plantation becomes a penitentiary, the penitentiary becomes the prison becomes our home became our ghetto became our prison became our plantation. It seems like we never left home. Can I kiss you before you go to work? After you've showered, standing naked in front of a full-length mirror, performing your early morning inspirational twerk. Black woman, you better work. Let's always remember to kiss before we walk out of our doors, never knowing if it will be our last ever kiss in the early morn. LAQUITA, my queen, can I kiss you in the AM?
Wow.
Hey, sorry about the mix-up. I'm hungry. I ain't eat yet. So.
That's
wow.
nice.
Wow. That's good. That's good. Thank you so much for sharing
Don't worry
that.
about it. I feel bad now. I messed up your poem. I feel bad, LAQUITA, but I'm sorry about that.
You used my name. That's why you messed it up.
Yeah,
No,
I did.
that was good. That was good. Thank you so much for sharing that. And you know what? So William, tell people how they can connect with you.
Okay, on excuse me, on Facebook and Instagram, I'm William Washington, 9231. But you'll know me from the chin here. Like I said, I'm the author of the Broken Book, Love Giving, Love Taking, Love Lost. And also my first book is my autobiography. And that's titled The Nigger Chronicles, The Mispronunciation of Who I Am. And that book almost went bestseller for me. So you can find me. Anything poetry, you can find me.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much, William.
Thank you.
Brandon, tell us where we can how people can connect with you.
People can connect with me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn.
Awesome. And thank you so much. I know you're outside, and thank you so much for taking time to be here. I appreciate that. I love it.
Thank you very much for inviting me here. And thank you, men, for allowing me to hear your stories. And I learned a lot from everyone.
Love it. I love it. Thank you, Brandon.
There was a word, Brandon, when you first came on, I got invincibility. There was a word that you used, and I'm trying to remember it now. Do you remember a phrase that you spoke with your first book? As you came on, you said, it was a one word that you used. It was somewhat like invincibility, but I'm gonna have to. This is recorded, right? So
it is.
I'm gonna be listening to that again.
Yes. We'll send it. We'll send the link. It's live, and then we'll send you the link so you can see it again. But John, so tell us about the project that you're working on, John.
Yes. Look, I wrote 2 years ago about Black Ebenezer Scrooge, and I titled the book Hang All the Mistletoe.
Mhm.
I've sold 48 copies, and I've autographed every single one of them, except the 12 that I sold online. Independent, uh, published, and I'm very, very proud to sell just one at $24.99. I was proud, and I'm going to be selling Hang All the Mistletoe for the rest of my life. All right. I would say to you, each man, do not allow this opportunity to just dissipate. Build on it. Um, there, from what I've heard, there is a whole wide open lane for each one. And that now that you have like a synergy of people, I would stay connected, and I would push each project myself without a financial incentive. We just create a synergy by pushing each other, and that's what I would really, really suggest. But my second book is built off of my first book. You know that Ebenezer Scrooge, the Black Ebenezer Scrooge, which I understand is the first one, had a visitation from three spirits to get him into the spirit of Christmas, which is Jesus Christ. And the very first spirit is a Black woman named Magadocious Wordette. She reminds me of my wife. I focused on my wife, and she put together some poetry in her late 20s and early 30s, which was a few years ago. And she kept them all in a notebook like organized women do. I have notes from my childhood that are somewhere. If I could find them, I might be able to write another book. But she had them in a neat place. It was the strangest thing. I had to run into a problem at work. I got suspended for 2 weeks. And I was so out of sorts that I didn't even want to leave the house. And I started reading voraciously, just reading everything. And I got my hands on her poetry, and I said, wow. I just read it, and I said, it's good stuff. Now, mind you, this was years and years ago when I first read it. So after the first book, which was built on this poetry that my wife did, I said, well, I've got a character that's a ghost, that's supposed to be Black. Who's going to tell you about yourself more better than a Black woman? And so that's when I came up with Magadocious Wordette. She tells Black Ebenezer Scrooge the truth in if it makes sense, a Black way. Very, very direct, to the point, and she shows a side of him that he just could not see. He's very, very well-to-do Black man, well-spoken, got his own job, hires. He's like 15 people in his staff. He hates Christmas, and he treats everybody kind of the way that he feels like treating them. Sometimes good, most of the time bad. And I'm saying this to you because it came out of that first book. So Magadocious Wordette Soul Sonnets is what my second book is. And I even call it a spoken word book, which LAQUITA helped me to pull that out because I was told that a spoken word book is an oxymoron. And it made me put that word away. And I mentioned it to LAQUITA in an interview. She said, "It's your book. You call it what you want to call it." I said, "Well, spoken word book is just doesn't make sense because it's spoken word." She said, "Who told you that?" And I will, but she said, "No, erase that from your mind right now and do what it is that you want to do." I said, "Well, it's a spoken word book, Soul Sonnets, spoken word book, Magadocious Word That's my second book. I have the third one sitting in wait. And I also have other ideas building off of Hang All the Mistletoe. Now, I was so depressed at the time. I was mourning. The loss of my mother, grieving. It's something I don't share because I don't know how to share it without preaching. I had to preach my way through it. I cannot talk to you in real talk, this, that, and the other. No, I'm talking about my mom. So I have to preach. That's why I'm a preacher now.
Yeah.
I will preach you out of your whatever you think you in. I'll preach you right out of it. Anyway, I was so devastated that I wanted to do something for her. Not some project, but something that will make it to heaven. Something that will give me a chance to get to heaven because I want to be with her. I'm not playing with no preachers. I'm not playing with deacons, churches, or anything else. I want to be with my mom. I'm not even playing with the Holy Spirit. How do I get there? And take your mask off, be real talk, and the Lord will talk back to you. I started writing. It took me 3.5 years to write this book. It's supposed to be the story of Christmas Eve, and that's it. And I started it like that. Do you know I backwards wrote? And I have 478 pages and 15 chapters. And I got to the end and said, "It's good, Mom, you're gonna like this." And by the time I introduced it to a publisher, they were like $6,000, $6,500. Well, I'm not gonna be able to do this, but the Lord found me a person that I got it done. So it was a passionate project. If you put your passion into your writing, you're going to write what I would say is a dope book. Dope.
Yeah.
No one else may appreciate it, but you are never going to be ashamed of the book you write with your heart. You're just not, you'll introduce it to anybody and it's like it's going to be a great thing.
Yep.
The Lord did help me to commercialize it. So that's how Magadocious Word That came about. That's how I got to Pay Pro V. I got a second book coming, Magadocious 2. I'm looking at video projects, TV projects from this book. So when you see Magadocious Word That, Soul Sonnets, spoken word book, that is the product of the first book. And then writing the anthology was kind of in the middle of promoting Magadocious Word That. And when LAQUITA offered me that, it was just another chance to get another log off of my heart and chest. From the pew to the pulpit is not meant to, look at me. It's just not meant that way. It may be received that way, but it's not meant that way. When I had the opportunity to do it, I just did 350 words, man. It's less than I think it's 400 and something words, my story. But I came out swinging, and I swing through every single word, every sentence, and I ended swinging. And if I had known, oh my goodness, if I had known that I was going to be sitting in front of you men on tonight, I would have wrote 1,000, 3,000. I would have wrote some words, man. You brothers are so dope. I don't even know how to tell you, and somebody need to tell you. That's who I am right now in this world. Because I'm walking around people. LAQUITA said something to me earlier today. You a bad man, and you know it, huh? Something to that effect. And I said, well, yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it's but you, regardless of how, and all of you guys are so strong, you need somebody, a Black man, to sit there and say, man, that stuff you got going on is real stuff, man. It's dope. Yeah, I need that in my life. I didn't even know I needed it until I heard it. I listened to Brandon, and just the first 3, 4, 5 words, man, I want to read that. I want that in my life.
Yeah, man.
And Felix, oh my God. I grew up in Massachusetts, which, what's the ratio? 35-1 on a good day? And that's just men. I'm not even counting the women. I guess if I had to count the women, it would scare the mess out of me. I've never, in the assessment of people, the population, I always go 35-1, and that's men to men in my little town of Springfield, Massachusetts. If I add women to that, I may not want to leave the door. But we grew up in that. Surroundings, and we managed. We got through, and we getting through even to this day. So, yeah, I got another project out. I'd love for you guys to check it out. But
John, tell them how they can connect with you.
Hey, man, that poetry, William. That's that poetry slam movie that got me into Magadocious Word Debt. Magadocious Word Debt is a soul sonnet that is built on poetry. So I put together sonnets. The Italian sonnet is A, B, C, D, E, F, G in a pattern. And I said later for that, I wanted to do a soul sonnet in a soul pattern and just write. And I tried to contain it in a space of 14 pages, but just to contain it in a space, but not necessarily one page.
Hey, Don, a good brother, OG once told me when I was in my 20s, he said, the word of God was and is the first spoken word poem.
Yes.
It's the first spoken word poem. So
Absolutely.
You already know. Yeah.
100%. And that's how I got this Magadocious Word Debt going on. Everything I do is under my cyber map. And I do it under mycybermap.com. The Lord gave me mycybermap.com 15 years ago. And just to, maybe some of you are still sitting still on something, like I'm sitting still on mycybermap.com. Just to give you a clue, I was told years ago in the spirit that I could put.
So I don't mean to interrupt you, John. We got to wrap it up. It's almost 9 o'clock, so we got to go.
Okay, but look at mycybermap.com. I could put the top 10 washing machines on there and sell them. You're connected to mycybermap.com.
That's
all right.
Yes.
But the Lord is good all the time, as Jamie Foxx said, and all the time. God is good.
Awesome. Thank you so much, John. Felix, tell us, how can people connect with you?
So on Facebook, just Felix Turner, IG Felix Turner 2, and then on LinkedIn, Felix Turner.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Listen, guys, if you are listening live and you catch this on the replay, it is worth the conversation. Share this, share this, share this. These are the amazing men of our journey from boys to men. I am LaQuita Parks. I am the CEO and founder. I am also the visionary for our journey from boys to men. Listen, you have a story. 100% of everybody has a story. If you need help with your story, it's time to write that story. It doesn't matter where you are in your story writing journey. You have a story. I know you have a story, but you don't know how to get started. Connect with us. We can help you get started. If you have started writing your story and you find yourself stuck, I can help you get unstuck. And if you're ready to if you've written your story and you're ready to publish your story, call us up. Let's have a consultation. We'll go through your story. We will give you feedback and we can publish your story for you. No matter what you do, get your story told, get your story published. If it's not me, find somebody you trust to help you take your story from a thought to a realization. Listen, guys, if there's anything I can do to help you, reach out to me at payprovipublishing.com. That's PAPROVI publishing.com. You can connect with me on all things social media, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, or X. And if all else fails, you can Google me. I am findable on Google. So guys, thank you so much. Felix and John, Brandon, William.
It's been a strong gas, man.
Much.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you so much. Brandon, thank you. Yes, our journey from boys to men part 2. I know John Edwards.
Love you, brothers. If nobody else had told you today, I love you. All right.
Awesome. Listen, guys, it has been a plump, pleasing pleasure. Better than a triple-decker peanut butter and jelly sandwich. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Kevin Vaughn, thank you so much. Until next time, be good.
Peace.
Peace out.
Peace.
All right. Take care, everybody. Don't forget to share this out, guys. Everybody on the planet listening, share it out on your platform.
God bless you, Elder Kevin. God bless you. Amen.
God bless everybody. Hey, wave us out, guys. Everybody wave us out. All right. I'll stop the share here in a second here. All right. Thank you so much.
Hallelujah.